The film begins with Rose as she leaves prison after completing her sentence. Rose had been arrested after she mistakenly killed the district officer and was sentenced to 20 years in prison, then released early for good behavior. After her release, Rose collects her belongings from the cell and meets her parole officer Cross, who informs her of the conditions of her parole: abstaining from drugs or alcohol, not carrying any weapon, not mixing with people who have a criminal record, and staying away from the victim's family. Meanwhile, Catherine, a young woman driving her car, has an accident and is taken to the hospital where her parents go to check on her. Rose arrives at her new home in Chinatown, and Cross tells her he will visit her every day at 10 a.m. Rose begins exploring the place and finds herself living in a room with 3 other women. She starts to accept her new reality, while Steve, the victim's son, appears, wanting revenge for his father's death, but his brother tries to calm him and convince him not to approach Rose. At night, Catherine's adoptive parents sit in the hospital, worried that Catherine may have learned of Rose's release from prison and intends to look for her. Meanwhile, Rose receives a phone call and faces an attempted robbery. She confronts the thief and warns her not to try stealing again. The next day, Rose wakes up and goes to the workplace where she intended to work in carpentry, but the contractor refuses to hire her, making her suspect that someone called him to prevent her from working. Rose then goes to Stan, Cross's friend, who hires her immediately in seafood packaging. Rose meets Blake, who teaches her the job and offers to have his colleague drive her home, but she refuses. The next day, Rose goes to the public library to search adoption records for any information about her sister. She discovers that the house she lived in with her sister had been renovated and sold. Rose stands in front of the house, recalling old memories, until John, who now lives there, approaches her and offers his help. Rose tells him she used to live in this house with her sister after their father's death, and that she went to prison while her sister went to foster care. Rose reveals to John that she wrote letters to her sister throughout her years in prison, but never received a reply. She thanks John for his help and leaves toward the bus station, but he insists on driving her. On the way, John gives her his business card and asks her to call his office if she needs help. The next day, Catherine leaves the hospital and settles at home during her recovery. She talks with her adoptive sister, Em, and tells her she still has dreams and nightmares about a woman she doesn't know and cannot recognize. Em tries to help Catherine find this woman, but Catherine refuses the idea, unaware that the woman she sees in her dreams is Rose, her older sister, whom she hasn't remembered since she was left as a child. Meanwhile, Rose goes to work and notices a nearby building where carpentry work is being done. She enters to ask about job opportunities and meets a worker who tells her the place is a non-profit charity organization and there are no hires at the moment. Rose notices that the wooden panels are not properly fixed, so she tells the worker, which prompts him to ask for her help. After starting work, she tells Cross that she now works in 2 places. He asks why she was hired so easily, and she explains that she built a wooden wall in just 45 minutes and that she is skilled in carpentry. Blake continues trying to help Rose get home, and eventually she agrees and allows him to drive her to her second job. It turns out that Keith is still watching Rose's movements. One day, Rose enters her workplace to find someone trying to rob her. She prepares to defend herself but discovers it is Blake, who came to check on her and brought her food and a jacket to keep her warm. For the first time in 20 years, Rose feels that someone cares about her, and she begins to develop feelings for Blake. During her breaks, Rose tries to call John at his office to ask for his help, in her case to find her sister, but he ignores her calls because he knows her story completely. Rose goes to John's company and apologizes for starting the matter the wrong way, telling him she needs him to arrange a meeting with her sister. She explains that she does not want to take Catherine away from her current family, but only wants to make sure she is okay. At the same time, Liz, John's wife, discovers Rose's entire story from the workers in the house she used to live in. She learns that the house witnessed a murder and that Rose was the one who killed the officer, which caused his children to be orphaned. Steve appears with his brother Keith at a party in the bar. Steve tells Keith that he must stay away from Rose and not ruin his life, but Keith insists he will not leave her because she is the reason their family was destroyed. Rose goes to her carpentry job and prepares to load the wood when Steve approaches her without revealing who he is. She asks him to help carry the wood, and he begins talking to her about her family. She tells him her parents are dead and that she lives alone in the warehouse that will be turned into a social center for the homeless. While they talk, she hears the sound of the cart carrying the wood and realizes the man in front of her is not a worker, so she asks him to leave. The next day, Rose goes to the fish factory where she receives a call from John telling her that Catherine's family has agreed to a meeting. Before she can respond, Rose is attacked by her co-worker, who tells her that her father was a policeman and that no one wants her there because she is a killer. The other workers intervene to save Rose, who calmly gets up and continues her work. When Cross learns what happened, he asks to meet Rose and tells her that the meeting with Catherine's family will be soon. Despite being injured, Rose feels great happiness because she may finally see her sister. Rose goes to John's office to meet Catherine's family, who ask to use fake names so Rose cannot find them. Michael, Catherine's adoptive father, tells Rose that Catherine lives a happy and stable life and that Rose's presence will harm her. Rose insists that Catherine is all she has left of her family, but Michael refuses to let her meet her. Rose loses control of her nerves and accuses them of hiding her letters from Catherine. Rachel, Michael's wife, reveals that the letters still exist, which causes Rose to completely lose control. The next day, Blake comes to apologize to Rose and tells her that he too is a criminal. At one moment, Rose does not give him the chance to explain and leaves. Blake needed someone to talk to. After finishing her work, Rose receives a call from M, who tells her she read all her letters and wants to meet her. M suffers from insomnia that night until the next day when she goes to the agreed place. It turns out Steve is watching Rose's movements and calls his brother Keith, but Keith does not answer. Rose arrives at the park where M is waiting and recognizes her easily. Rose sits beside M and apologizes for being absent from her life. She talks about herself and how she loved school but had to choose between school and her sister, and she chose her sister. She lived with her sister on a farm and had a horse named Cheese, which was Catherine's favorite food when she was little. Rose expresses her hope to see her sister and know what she looks like now. M tells her Catherine has become a professional pianist and remembers nothing of her life with Rose. M asks Rose to return home and tells her Catherine has a rehearsal, giving her the place and time. It turns out Steve is watching M and follows her to learn her home address. When Steve returns home, his wife scolds him for being with his brother Keith, and he hits her until she runs away. After that, Steve goes to get his father's gun. Meanwhile, Rose tries to contact John to see if she can meet her sister alone, but fails. Rose meets Liz, John's wife, who sees her as a criminal and believes she should remain in prison. Liz tells Rose she has no right to come to her house or ask to meet her husband because she killed an innocent man. Rose replies that she paid 20 years of her life, which is more than the price required for what happened, and that she had to do it because her sister was only 5 years old. Liz begins to realize there is something wrong with the story being told and asks Rose to explain what happened. Rose explains that the bank was going to take her house and she was trying to stop them from entering. She used the rifle and killed the officer while Catherine was sitting behind her. Catherine felt she had to defend her home like her sister who raised her. When Catherine felt someone entering through the basement door, she took the rifle and shot the person who entered, who was the officer. Because Catherine was only 5 years old, Rose did not allow anyone to punish her. Rose took responsibility for the crime she did not commit and was punished for it for 20 years. The time of Catherine's rehearsal approaches, and Rose realizes she will not arrive on time. After Liz hears the whole story, she sympathizes with Rose and drives her to the hall where Catherine is playing. Before Rose enters to see her sister, she receives a call from Steve telling her that her sister is with him now, and if she wants to see her alive, she must come to the address he gives her. Rose immediately goes to save her sister, not understanding why she went to a building instead of the rehearsal hall. Rose learns that someone kidnapped Catherine and receives instructions from Steve on how to reach him. Rose enters the warehouse and finds that Steve made a mistake and kidnapped Em instead of Catherine. Catherine is in the hall playing piano with her family present. Rose is with Steve and listens to what he says, then kneels on the ground and tells him she was a child and had no fault. Steve replies that he too was a child, and Rose realizes he is the officer's son. Rose tells him his father was very kind and intended to move her to live with him after the bank took her house. What happened was a mistake that cost her life, and she asks him not to lose his life too by carrying guilt for something he did not do. Steve collapses in front of her, and Rose frees Em and takes her out. The police surround the place to free Em and arrest Rose and Steve. Cross arrives and asks for Rose's release if there are no charges against her. Em's family arrives to check on her, with Catherine among them. Rose looks at Catherine from afar, wishing she were her sister, and at the same time fearing their first meeting. Rose notices Catherine looking at her and walking toward her. Rose stops moving, not knowing how to act. Tears fill Rose's eyes as she sees her sister for the first time in 20 years standing before her without a word. Catherine embraces her sister, and Rose feels everything happening is a dream until she touches her with her hand and realizes it is real. Rose's wish is fulfilled, to be reassured that Catherine is fine and living a happy life. She asks for nothing more.